welcome to the oral history of California County, also called through the grant, the oral history of Gold Country. And we would like to thank our hosts, our sponsor, CCTV, for this airing. We also want to thank our grant giver, and that is California Humanities, for their generous grant for doing this wonderful oral history project. I'm Monica Rose with Manzanita Writers Press, and I'm here with Gail and John Kautz of Kautz Vineyards, Ironstone, and many, many other farm businesses that you have throughout the state and beyond. And I was so amazed. They have a book that came out. You can see it on the side here, Kautz Ironstone. And this is a story of family and farm in California by Kevin Starr, great librarian and scholar and writer who has passed. This was his 15th book and last of his books. Many of them I have on a list here. Land's End. Started publishing back, in 73 it looks like, with Americans in the California Dream, Inventing the Dream, Material Dreams, all these historical books. So you can look them up online, but this is a definitive list. That's amazing. But let's talk about your coming here to Calaveras. I read this wonderful story about the background. I had no idea of this wonderful heritage that you have brought with you. And tell us a little bit about how each of you came here as an immigrant experience from your descendants down. You don't have to give a very large, but where are your roots?
We'll start with Gail.
Yeah.
Well, we came to Calaveras in 1948 when my father, who was a lawyer, and he had served in the Navy, and he promised when he got out of the Navy that he would like to go into farming too. So my grandfather, on my mother's side, was head of Maloney's mine, and my dad asked him, because he was up in Calaveras County already, if he would find us the property. And he did. He found this original Schwerer ranch, and he found the property for us. We bought the ranch, and my line, and it's in the book, was I was a country girl who was accidentally born in the city. And I was so thrilled to finally have some country to get to. Mm-hmm. So we would come up here. We lived in Oakland. We would come up here, and in summers, weekends, winter, any time that we could get away from the city, we would come up to Murphy's. And, I just loved coming up here. When I could, I bought my first horse. I paid $100 for her, and which by today's horses is nothing, but she was a wonderful horse, and I went all over the hills. In those days, you could go any place, and it was safe to go. Mm-hmm. I would take off in the morning, and I would ride until sundown, and then come back. Sometimes
by yourself? By yourself?
By myself. Oh. And no, I'm sure I did a little trespassing, but I never got caught. So.
What was your horse's name?
Princess.
Princess. It's funny how you always remember.
Yes, I can't remember people's names, but I can remember horses' names.
And what kind of a horse was she?
I don't know. I think she looked to me like she was a draft horse and mm-hmm. Shetland pony cross. Mm-hmm. She would never win a confirmation class, but she certainly put up with me, and that was all that was required.
Yeah. So your family would come up. Was there a farmhouse, a ranch house that you would stay in?
No. When we bought the ranch, there was what we called the tin house, and we stayed in that a couple of summers, and then we built a house. And actually, we built the house in 1951, and I can claim that I helped build it, because I think I was such a bratty kid that the contractor put me to work pounding nails in the subfloor to get me out of his hair. And I was very good at pounding nails.
You still remember that?
I still remember that.
That experience.
And I can remember that my little brother, who was always very helpful too, took the contractor's keys and dumped them down a hole in the floor.
Both of you kind of a little on the feisty side, huh?
I guess, I
Yeah.
don't know, but anyway, I loved what I was doing, and I prided myself in being the best nail pounder around.
Did you train yourself to ride horses, or did you?
I did.
Yeah.
Well, I had had a couple of English riding lessons, and that was down in the Bay Area, and they were very proper, and I didn't want to be very proper. So I just climbed on the horse and with a saddle and took off and went.
That's pretty plucky because, without a lot of formal training, and here you are riding the hills and in
Well,
those
my
days-
parents had ridden,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so they understood, what I was doing. And I rode all over what we call the Murphy's Ranch, the old Schwerer Ranch. And I didn't do anything really crazy.
Were you a teenager then? Or even younger than that?
Yeah, probably 13.
Oh, wow. Pretty plucky. I think today, looking back, parents would be horrified. They would, imagine, you're letting your kid ride off on a horse at 13 and all over the hills. And
It's sad because today's kids are not able to do that, and they're missing so much.
yeah. They didn't worry about, whoa, what if something happens and you're stranded somewhere? And amazing times, weren't they?
Well, yes, if I had fallen off, I would have come back with a wonderful story about how I got bucked off and everything. But no, I didn't. It was great fun, and I was very fortunate to be able to experience that.
Amazing. So that the hills kind of got into your blood.
The hills
Yeah.
were definitely in my blood. Well, I remember staying at my grandfather's house in Maloney's, and there was somebody driving cattle to the mountains, and I would lay in bed and I would see the cattle from the river crossing on up the side of the hill, and they were going up to the high country for the summer, and they were all mooing, and it was great memories.
Yeah, great memories. What about you, John?
Well, we were farmers in Lodi, and my two uncles, Ben Lai and Vic Lai, my mother's side, were working up here in the Calaveras area, and at one time Ben was ditch tender for the stream that comes down in the water system. And then he also went over to Columbia State Park, and he was over there running the different things there for the state at the time. And then they both went into the service when the war broke out. And Vic made it back, but my Ben didn't. So it's in the book as well.
Yeah.
So we used to love coming up here fishing and doing a little hunting and what have you. And it was close and easy to come here from Lodi as it was.
Yeah, it was easier back that was in the 50s or 60s?
It'd be actually in the 30s.
In the 30s.
And 40s.
Yeah, wow. And you had the successful building of your farms in Lodi and surrounding areas. Tell us how that came about. That was amazing.
Well, we started out typical farmers. Raised our own food, milked cows. In fact, it's in the book as well. I had my first cow that I milked supposedly at about 7 years old, and from there on, it was separate the cream off, milk the cows, separate the cream, and we had big 10-gallon cans that would take it down to the cream down to Grade B dairy and sold the cream, and then slopped the hogs. And so my pleasure when I was that age was taking and aiming at and then squirting the cat with milk. And you'd never believe the cat was but that was my fun.
I can see
part
that.
of my milking cows.
Oh my gosh.
And So then we went on into FFA and Lodi High School. Well, my first school was Madison out of Waterloo, and we had 9 students, 8 grades, and 1 teacher.
Amazing.
So,
I taught at Lodi High for
Did
years.
you?
Mhm, yeah.
well,
Yeah.
then when we moved over to Live Oak Road, where we live now, I went to Live Oak School, which was right on the highway, 99, 2-lane road. And as 6th graders, we stopped the traffic and let the kids cross the highway. And there was no traffic to speak of. And then a few years later, but there were four classes there. There were two grades per class. So there were 4 teachers, and I was scared to death going in that school. So,
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, because you probably you had work to do at home, probably as
we
as a
worked
child.
at home all the time. You know, this was 4 hours or more before school, 4 after, and everything in between.
Yeah. Getting up at the crack of dawn, and
Oh, yeah, no.
everybody had chores. Yeah.
Everybody, we all had chores, and as I say, we had huge gardens, and so we'd tend the gardens, and Mother would can all the vegetables and even canned chicken at that time.
Really?
Yeah, no, it was we had a big basement, and that's where we had carried everything.
It's kind of that tradition too of, utilizing the land in many different
Right.
ways. And that's, I was reading about how you progressed in making decisions in your farming as a young man on your farm, deciding decisions that you made. What decisions do you think were really instrumental in shaping your path when you were young like that?
Well, first, I love the farming side, or the work side, and the first thing that I wanted to do when I was in high school, I said, I want to raise canning tomatoes. We weren't doing any of that, and so 1948, when I graduated from high school, we planted 40 acres of tomatoes, canning tomatoes, and that started my whole business off on my father and I worked the tomatoes, etc. And then in 1951, he passed away, so I was on my own at a very early age. My mom and I carried the ranch on.
And that's a lot of responsibility for a young man. How old were you then, in your early 20s?
Well, I was born in 1930,
Yeah,
so
yeah, early 20s, yeah.
12, 14 years old.
Yeah, 12, 14 at that point when your dad died?
No, I was a little older then when he passed away. He passed away in the 50s, so I was 21.
Oh, okay. Yeah, trying to do the math.
Yeah.
But yeah, my son-in-law works in farming. He works for a couple of brothers, and he has part ownership of this big farm, and they grow canning tomatoes and all kinds of things. So I feel this kinship. He works a lot. He works out. I mean, he's never got a day off. So farmer's life is. My daughter says, "Mom, I'm married to a farmer. It's 24 hours.
That's
always
exactly
on call."
what it is, 7:24.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that's how we got going down there, and then the rest is in the book. As far as I was future farmer president at Lodi High School, chapter number 1, and I was very, very proud of that.
Yeah.
And
And
you
you've
still have your
organ-
jacket.
Yeah,
Yeah. You still have.
The blue FFA jacket
blue
says
FFA
chapter
jacket?
number 1 on it.
You have it still
yeah,
in the closet?
someplace in the chest.
Mm-hmm. Goodness. I'm curious. I know you two met. I read about a little bit how you met, but talk about that a little bit, how the two of you got together and came up with this idea for Ironstone. But tell us about your early days together. And
Well, I tell people we met in a bar. Actually, it was not a bar, it was a pizza parlor, and it was Lugo's in Stockton, where all the college kids gathered. And it was spring vacation, and most everybody was out on home or wherever they were, and I had stayed in school. And my roommate and I decided we wanted to go out for an evening. So we did. And we went to Lugo's, and we were having a nice pizza, and she met a football player of her dreams and asked if I minded if she left me, and I said, go for it. And so anyway, she was left, I was left by myself, and I knew the fellow who was the bartender. He was a mutual friend. And so anyway, I went over and sat there, and this guy came in, and the mutual friend introduced us, and they started talking. We were having heavy rains at the time, and so they were talking. They were going to dynamite the railroad trestle because the water was backing up on the Calaveras River and it was going to flood Stockton, and they were talking about how to save Stockton. Well, long story short, after they decided maybe they wouldn't do that, he asked if he could take me home, and I really didn't know about it, but I went with him. And we went out. We went actually close to his home, to another home in our neighborhood where the water was coming down Live Oak Road, and it was running into this house, and they were putting sandbags up. So, romantic first date, we helped sandbag.
yeah, I read about that till 3 in the morning, the two of you. That was pretty, the two of you working side by side.
Oh, yeah, no, we've done a lot of work together for sure.
Were you filling up the sandbags too?
Yeah.
And,
no, we were
placing them?
Carrying them
dump
over
them.
and putting them in the,
To keep the water from running up the driveway of these people's home.
Well, she wasn't afraid of hard work, and
no, that we've known our whole life. It's
That
been
was
hard work,
Yeah.
and we love it.
yeah,
That was
Well,
very
that's-
satisfying. It's
yeah,
fun.
it
It's
shows.
nice to get something accomplished.
So Gail, what was your dream in the beginning?
To live in the country and own a horse. And I met this guy, and when he asked me to marry him, we agreed, yes, we would make a vow together. I would stop smoking. I was smoking at the time. I thought it was very sophisticated. And I wanted to keep my horse someplace. And he would...
I'd learn how to snow ski, and build her a horse barn.
That did it.
So,
And, well, the only problem was I had to race like crazy to catch with him. He just pointed his skis downhill and said, what do you do now?
So you were both kind of involved up here early on. You with the outdoors and
yeah.
enjoying that.
Yeah.
Did you already have your place up here? Or
No, we bought the land from my father. He loved to come up here, and he came up most every weekend when he could. And then, sadly, his health failed, and he couldn't come up anymore. So he actually put it on the market. And we were saying, oh, what a pity. It's such a beautiful ranch. And then we decided, well, we can't afford it, but we need to buy it. So we did. And that's how we wound up here. And then since then, we've added more ranches to it, so it's bigger now.
Yeah. So I consider you both in the forefront of putting Calaveras County on the map. I mean, as far as a place to come to. You, that was your dream, and I was reading about the blasting of the rock, and and I vaguely remember, I think it was in the 80s, there was a groundbreaking.
89.
89, I remember
Right.
it, and I wasn't able to go, but I'd read about it, and
Ironstone actually, without building of it, but I was also on the Tourism Commission. I was the very first CFO of the California Tourism Commission, and when it was first started. And so I was very interested in tourism and what have you. And so actually very early on, Murphy's Hotel came up for sale. And we said, well, how Murphy's Hotel goes, so goes the town of Murphy's, so goes our value of our ranch. And because the ranch comes right up to the hotel. And so we bought a small interest in the hotel from the Murphy's Ale and Quail, which is a story that someday you'll want to do
I'd love to.
by itself. Because College of Pacific at the time, these were all kids that were going there. And I went to the School of Hard Knocks, which is work at home and never went on to college at all. But it said, so we said when we decided to build a winery, we were doing bulk wine otherwise and what have you. We said Ironstone is where we want to do it, Murphy's. We wanted to find a hill and have caverns and have a show place. So it has proven out to be the show place, and now if you look at the whole Sierras, everybody is trying to copy Murphy's. All these little towns and groups are trying to do what Murphy's is doing. And Murphy's, when we started here, you could shoot a cannon down the main street and not hit anything any day of the week. And now you can't find a parking place in Murphy's.
I remember those days.
Yes.
Murphy's, it wasn't the tourist destination, it was just a little
Right.
town.
It was a little town, and when my dad bought the ranch, Murphy's had a population of 600 people,
Wow,
and it's changed since then.
it sure has. But you've been a part of that. You've been such a strong part of the development of Murphy's. I think people
Every realtor,
need to realize.
when they're showing people property, they bring them to Ironstone
Yeah.
first, and then they go out and show them the property. So, but we feel very proud of the fact that we've changed the Sierras as far as tourism goes, and people and understanding the value of the area.
Well, you have the concourse d'elegance, you have the big car show. It's so
Right.
wonderful.
Coming up soon.
Coming up,
And the concerts. I mean, who would think? You guys started all that, you know? And it's just amazing. What do you see another thing that you'd like to do? You've been adventurous, both of you, risk takers. I read about all the risk taking and that, you know, and having to make a decision, but you've always moved ahead. Do you have a vision? You see something coming that you'd love to do?
we're crazy, that's all, we're just crazy.
No, crazy hardworking, crazy visionaries.
Well, you know, if you look at Murphy's and be the Chamber of Commerce, you know, it's above the fog, below the snow. We get a little snow once in a while. But weather-wise, the proof of how beautiful Calaveras is, etc., is that when you go from Angels Camp to Murphy's, about 4 miles up the road on the grade road, you go from the oaks to the firs. And that tells you what the weather patterns are and how cool at night it gets in Murphy's. And the old Bret Hart Center, which was a tuberculosis hospital, are all at this elevation because the air is the cleanest and purest that you find in the state, actually. And so was a whole series of tuberculosis hospitals built at about the 3,000, 2,500 foot elevation. And so that's the beauty of the area and the county.
Yeah. And you were always conscious of, I think, the environment, what's going to happen to our weather, how we're going to be affected, how your crops are going to be affected.
Oh, sure.
Well, yeah, that's very important.
And I think research was important to you, your affiliations with UC Davis that I read about.
Right.
Always trying to get the expert advice and leading these coalitions. And what I found was interesting was that your organizing and your team approach to
Right.
all of this, and how magnanimous you've been, excuse me, with all that you've done. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, we were, very, very involved with the California Young Farmers, which was the alumni group from the FFA, from the Future Farmers at high school. And being involved there, I became state president of that organization, and I did a lot of traveling up and down the state, visiting the different chapters. And so that was a big education on values and what things were happening in other areas. We worked very, very closely with the soil conservation. I was on the 18 years on the soil conservation board in Stockton, in San Joaquin County. And then between that was my college education, I guess you'd say. And we worked very closely with the farm extension, ag extension, and did a lot of trials on seed and fertilizers and everything with test plots and so forth with them for many, many years. And we were pretty forward, innovative, and
Yeah.
got involved in many different crops.
And Gail, you hosted events all the time. You were a big organizer, and you had your own
That sounds a little
altruistic.
scary.
Yeah, you had altruistic moments too, and in charge of social things, and more than that,
Well, I was very involved,
civic duties.
among other things, in 4-H.
Yeah.
And that's how the concourse got started. I was state chairman of the foundation, and people were really generous donating to the 4-H Foundation. But I thought, we have to spread our base. We have to let more people know. And that was why I started the car show. And to be very honest, I don't know that much about antique classic cars, but I do have people that do know about them, and they are experts in the subject. So I do the organizing, they do the gathering of the cars, and it's been very successful. This year will be in our 28th year, which is a little shocking to me. I think I must have started it when I was 2. I'm not sure. But, I enjoy doing things, and I enjoy working for young people, and I enjoy working for young people in agriculture and getting them involved in agriculture. And that basically is why I do the things I do.
Yeah. And I think your family's really important, family ties.
Very much
I think
so.
going all the way back, generations, it seems family stuck together, helped each other, and even worked with neighboring families. Everybody kind of pitched in, and your sons too, and your daughters, and all the
No,
what
we're
you've
very
instilled in
fortunate
them.
to have 4 children that are all involved in
Yeah.
agriculture and in our operations.
Yeah. And that was important.
Oh, very important, and church was very important. We were Lutherans, and so my parents actually went to the church, Lodi Lutheran Church, in 1923. That's when they came out from Nebraska. And so we grew up there, and we've been having what we call our Harvest Fest here at the Ironstone at the winery for 28 years now. And we invite 5 of the Lutheran churches, ours and Murphy's, Valley Springs, Mountain Ranch.
Okay.
And that event is coming up on the 1st of October. And you're all invited.
Oh.
It's all on the Kautz family. We have the ceremony, the services, and then we have a big lunch, entertainment.
Oh,
and-
wonderful.
And everybody is welcome.
Oh, good. And where are the services held? Are they outdoors or inside?
No, we're inside the,
It's a music room.
you know, so,
In the cellar there? Yeah, beautiful.
yeah, and then we use the stage and the outside for the luncheon itself, etc.
I had read, was it one or two ministers had come up and blessed the property? The Ironstone property, was that
What's that?
the blessing of the property that the Lutheran
Oh,
minister?
we used to have the blessing of the grapes,
The grapes.
Yes.
right.
Okay. So,
The first load of
First
grapes
load of
that we'd
grapes.
crush
ah,
would come and have the blessing on it. And,
Okay.
there's a number of wineries do that as well.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good ceremony.
And that the two of you took your shoes off and were stomping the grapes?
Well, no, they have the grape somp
Yeah,
in Murphy's.
Well, they
Yeah.
do that. We did do it at the winery
Yeah.
that one time.
Yeah, I think we did.
uh-huh.
And red grapes are more comfortable to crush than
Are they?
than white ones because of the stems that hurt your feet.
Interesting. Do you go out to the vineyards and do you,
Not so much anymore.
not so much anymore?
Well, we used to do everything, period,
Yeah,
from day one.
yeah, interesting.
That's what you have children for.
Yeah, I know that's what my kids say, you had us for labor purposes, didn't you? Everybody had work to do, chores to do,
Right.
yeah.
Well, one of the things that we also did, we were named Outstanding Young Farmers of the Nation in 1965. And that changed our lives considerably because I went on the board of Top Farmers of America with Earl Butts, who was Secretary of Ag, etc.
That was amazing.
And so we then really spread out. 1969, I talked the group into going on a world trip together, and which we did. And one of the places that we went to was Israel. And so we saw the very first drip irrigation at the Netafilm plant. And we said, wow, this is going to work. So when we came home, we started developing drip irrigation in our fields. And we had people come from all over the state seeing what we were doing. And so that's how drip irrigation is now major statewide.
Yeah.
And water conservation as well as growing conditions.
And I was reading about some of your innovations that you had in machinery
Right.
and the inventions that you worked on.
Yeah, we were farming very heavy dirt, adobe soils, and so you had a lot of problems with like raising beans with root rot. And so we kept figuring out what we're going to do, and we finally just worked out a program on developing high beds and planting the beans very shallow, using herbicide for the weed control. And that system that we developed, then irrigate the beans up, but that system, the beans flourished because they didn't get root rot. And so with that system, which is still being used today, after all these years, the same system that we developed at that time is still in progress today.
That's amazing. And
So-
that there was some machinery too that you
Right.
devised to help with.
Well, typically
With
the
harvest.
farmers, the big companies, FMCs and what have you, John Deere, they build equipment and then they send it to the farmers and they redevelop it. They modify it to where it actually works.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah. Also, I was reading just your sense of associations. So
Very important.
very important that you work with others in a
Right.
network.
Yeah.
And I know, Gail, you've had affiliations and you know, tell us a little bit about that. How did you get everybody working together on projects, and maybe think of one?
Well, you just do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I never have thought about, I do this, I do that, I do that. I just get together with people and we do it. And that's, you know, I've been involved, well, my most recent involvement was with the California State Parks. We've done that. Before that, I was with the State Fair for quite a while, still am. You never leave the State Fair. That's another subject. And, you know, just by doing that, and I don't know what to say because I never thought of a certain plan where I did this. I just did what was needed and I did it.
So something comes up and you say, okay, I'm going to
Well,
handle
She
this.
definitely is a doer.
Yeah.
She was the first woman chair of the California State Fair ever.
Amazing. And people don't know these behind the scenes activities and you know, plans that people have, and just said, well, you're just going to do it.
Well,
What was one thing that you remember being in charge of or facilitating that was important to you?
Gala?
Well, I started the California State Fair Gala, which is true. I think one of the things that made the biggest impression on my life was with the, no, it wasn't the state parks, it was the other one, where we rode out, we were, I'm having a senior moment, but anyway, we rode out on horses to see a group of young people who were working building trails up above Yosemite. And they got up early in the morning, they walked 5 miles. Everything was very military, it was very regimented. And they came back after a day of hard work. They had to wash up and eat their dinner. They ate like horses, which was a good thing. And then we sat around by the campfire. They were tired, they were exhausted, and they were saying, for the first time in my life, we're making a difference. We're doing something worthwhile. And I think that one statement probably made as big an impression on me as anything I ever did.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. And did you make the sandwiches, Gail?
No, I didn't make the sandwiches, but I ate the food.
Well, it's,
Yes,
And
so
what it-
that was the California Conservation Corps.
it was still strong today.
Still going, well, it was in its beginning stages at the time. But it was just so impressive to see that. One of the young men had come from a gang in Los Angeles, and he was the leader of the group. And he was leading young people that were doing worthwhile things. And it made an impression on him, and it made a huge impression on me.
It maybe changed your view of things, possibly.
It changed my view in that you need something worthwhile to do. And at the end of the day to say, I made a difference.
Yeah. And that goes with your, let's just do it.
I
motto.
never think of doing it, I just do
Just
it.
do it. And what, you've had affiliations, like the Tri-Valley Growers that you began that organization?
We were involved in many cooperatives, and I was on the board of, I hate to say how many of them, but I went on to be the chairperson of Tri-Valley Growers, which was the largest fruit and canning company in the world at the time, and that was one of my big goals in life, was to be on that board and be its chairman. So that was a great experience as well.
You know, and I was reading about how it's interesting how fresh produce and everything kind of put the kibosh on canning. Because I remember when I was growing up, everybody canned, and
Sure.
you bought cans from the store. A lot of vegetables, even though they were fresh, we did a lot of canned goods.
Oh, canning was everything.
It was, I just remember, yeah, for dinner and for meals, people
we all
normally
did
would
it.
open a can.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
odd.
There
But
were
now,
peaches that were fresh, so you canned them. There were apricots that needed canning, so you canned them.
Well, the frozen food industry came to be finally, and so that changed people's appetites from canned to fresh and frozen. And then you started developing a big fresh market for fresh vegetables, etc. And the canning industry was going downhill fast. And so we experienced all of that, and we experienced a lot of, lots and lots of cooperatives and the pluses and the minuses of being a cooperative member, etc.
I remember buying a jar of pickles in our Treats grocery, and it said made in India. I'm thinking, what's going on here? You know, look at all the pickles that could be grown here that are being grown, shipped overseas, and we're getting them from India. Seems like something's wrong with this picture. But you have a local, like you have your store, also your farm store down in Lodi.
No, we don't have it any longer.
Don't have it any longer?
No, but we did have it for a number of years.
Uh-huh. Did you ever think of, like, I know farmers markets up here, very big
Oh,
now?
Sure. We're very happy to see farmers markets, and that's a great place for introducing the public to what farmers do, and that's a good schooling there.
We just
Well-
published a children's book, The Farmers Markets. Share the Joy by Michelle Rugo. And it's for children and for them to appreciate growing in agriculture. So
Right.
I'm real connected to what you're doing here. I believe in that.
I was president of the Ag Network, which in that time was made up of almost all the commodity organizations in the state. We started the Ag in the Classroom. And that's where that program came from and started. And that is a wonderful program, and it really needs to be expanded and continued to push, because you're teaching the kids science, you're teaching them all the different parts of life, growing, and problems with them, and what have you. But Ag in the Classroom is a wonderful program that really needs to be expanded countrywide.
And so do you have any ideas on how to expand that program? Do you have any
Well, just
thoughts about
you
that?
have to get the educators to support it, the teachers, and you know what happened you go back a few years, and the teachers used to be involved in the activities, the recesses and parks and what have you. And then they decided they didn't want that much extra work. And so the teachers, really backed off of a lot of these extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
And, but you've got to get the teachers to want to support something like that and do it. So when we set the program up originally, Home Depot was giving us a big break on different tools and what have you, and they were very supportive. But until we get somebody that will really convince the teachers to promote it and work with it, you can't, that's where it stops.
Yeah. I'm worried about the family farm.
Right.
You know, we hear about this industrialization, farms and corporate farming and all this, but I think you still embody the family farm idea. What do you think about what's happening?
Well, family farm is alive and well, but you have to keep the family involved in the operations. And what happens often is the kids go to college and educated and computerized, and they see a easier world out there than the daily hard work of farming. And so,
No, I was going to say, and then the rest of the story is that they are very successful in their businesses. They work hard so that they can eventually buy a farm and come back to it.
That's the dream, right?
It is.
Yeah,
that's a true story.
yeah. But your kids are all involved in your,
Yes,
and it seems like they've each taken a different role
correct.
to keep that
They
going.
have.
How did you do that as parents?
Not
Like,
easily.
You didn't
It's not
force them.
easy.
I felt from the book, from reading, you didn't force them to do it,
Mm.
which, that most kids would resent that. How early on did you instill that in them when they were small, for instance? What memories do you have?
Pretty early on, example, our son, number 2 son, Kurt, when he went to Davis to college, he ran our produce market there on 8 Mile and 99. And so, and then he expanded that business. It was real education for him. And he went into some of the malls and set up kiosks in the holiday series and with packages and gift packages and what have you, fruits and vegetables. So that really set him off into the thing, and he does all of our, he's our controller for all the operations, and he has his own operations, which is very significant as well.
Do you have grandkids? Are you teaching them what you know?
They've kind of all taken their own
Their own
way,
path?
and I think some of them are going to be, like I talked about, they're going to be very successful in business, and they'll eventually come back to the farm, but I think they have to go do their own thing,
Yeah.
which, we respect.
Mhm.
And I'll have to say, we just found out we're going to be great-grandparents for the first
Oh,
time. To
congratulations.
twins.
Twins? Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, first time.
Yeah, and it seems a lot of the kids are coming back around. They're looking at old-fashioned things, looking back at past generations and what they did, and they're coming back around to seeing that.
Well, I think that's one reason that it's so valuable to write down your family history, too, which we've done in our book, and many people should be doing the same thing. I really think that there's probably nobody in your audience that hasn't at one time said, we're going to write a book, we have to do it, but they never do. It's very easy to put off. And so I think that that is a big value to the future generations. They're going to look at it for a while and say, well, it's kind of old folks stuff, but someday they'll treasure it.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important. So I had a question. You're not just continuing the history of your family, but you're creating history. What moments do you think are historic that you've done? I mean, when you can take a moment, this has changed history. If you think that way, everything we do creates that path. Can you think of a moment or two that I think changed, shifted, or created history? I know in general terms it's very hard to
It's a
answer
hard
something
question,
like
so he
that.
says, go ahead, Mom. I don't think you do anything with the idea of creating history. When you look back on it, yes, there were some changes, but looking forward to it, no, we don't do it for the purpose of creating history. We do it there because it needs to be done.
Looking back,
Looking
Right.
back
it becomes
is,
history, doesn't it?
looking back is different from looking forward.
Yeah.
And, as everybody said, there are things that we should have done differently. There are more things that we would like to do, and we have those ahead of us, but I don't think that you do anything with the idea of creating history.
Well, but what people don't realize is that during our lifetime, this time period is probably the finest period in history, particularly in agriculture. Agriculture has gone from, mom and pop, raise your own food, to where we're feeding the world. And we were very fortunate in, on that trip that we took around the world, to see the 3 wheats that Dr. Borlaug had developed in India, and we visited with him there in India. There were the dwarf wheats and the semi and the regular wheats that literally changed the food supply for the whole world. It was what's known as the Green Revolution. And it was a marvelous experience. And we also spent a lot of time with Borlaug in Mexico and other countries where they have deposits of seed in like almost like vaults that they're trying to protect some of the earliest seeds that are have been developed and modernized, and so that if there's a disease that comes in that knocks out that crop, they can go back to the basics and reintroduce.
That's fantastic.
So,
Well, and it's worthwhile noting that Norman Borlaug was a Nobel Prize winner too for his efforts in doing that.
Yeah, no, he was a marvelous person.
Do you think you've done something that has affected
No, nothing
farming
like that.
history? No?
Nothing like
Not like that. But in a minor way. In a minor way.
In a minor way, yeah, we are right now. We have a friend, we're very heavily involved in the Future Farmers of America. And Jim Boswell, who happens to be the largest cotton grower in the whole world, has a foundation, and Jim proposed that we start a foundation at FFA, at California FFA, to raise $2 million to educate more young people in agriculture, and he put up $1 million into that fund. And so we're just now in the process of going out, and we need to raise another $1 million for that project. So we are doing things.
Yes,
still
that is historical.
A little bit right now.
I would say you're on the crossroads, and only good things from here.
Right.
Yeah.
So anybody listening to this program, get your hand up. We're ready to collect some
Yes.
serious money for agriculture and for our ag youth.
For scholarships.
And then we go right to FFA and the founders
Yes.
in our community and the
Right.
leaders in our community. Yeah. And both of you have been leaders in what you've been doing and in our community as well.
Yes, well, I've been a 4-H leader.
Yeah,
For 40 years.
40 years.
I was a horse leader for 27 years.
And they're doing great things for, the youth here. FFA is.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I keep saying, all you ever hear about is how bad these kids are. They're all in trouble, they're all on drugs and everything. You don't look at the ones
good
that are
ones.
out there. They're not making headlines, but they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're making a difference. And those are the good kids that
Right.
we need to support.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Is there anything you both would like to say, maybe in regards to Calaveras or future visions, or something you'd like to see happen, that you see in a vision for our county, for historical preservation or the way of life?
I would say that the most important part for all of the Sierras, including Calaveras County, is tourism. And if you think about tourism, people come, bring money, leave money, and go home. And they're not needing all of these support schools and what have you. So for the Sierras, it's really important that they worked together and developed their tourism much stronger than it is now. It's good, but it needs to be strengthened even more. And California Tourism Commission, Carolyn Batetta, who's a very close friend, and we worked together on the start of the Tourism Commission, original. She's a great person, and we can really do a lot with her help on getting more tourism in the Calaveras County.
That's good. And I know your museum is really nice, and your idea in preserving history is very strong. And
Right.
and it's a beautiful little museum there at the winery. And
Well, we want Calaveras to grow and to progress and to stay Calaveras, because that's what it is.
yeah.
And I always chuckle when I see the man driving around Murphy's that has the bumper sticker, says Flatlanders go home.
Yeah. Or in San Andreas, it's not our fault. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to thank both of you for a very wonderful time here, and had so many more questions and things. But to buy the book, where can people get the book? Are you having this available? Of course, at Ironstone, they can go to the bookstore and museum, correct, and get the book.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Are you going to distribute this?
Yeah, we'll have more places that they can buy it.
Are you going to have a party, a launch party?
Well, we did.
We did have.
Did you already have
Yes.
one?
Oh, yeah, no, we had beautiful lunch, bring out the book program.
Okay.
We had Dennis McNeil, tenor, and Terry
Terry
Bibb,
did.
Okay.
who did more than 1,000 performances at Broadway,
On Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera. Anyway, we had them perform, and we had about 250 people for dinner on the opening, and
Well, I'm sorry I missed that.
350 the next day
Oh.
with our Gold Club, etc.
Good. Any more parties planned for this?
Oh, yeah, there'll
Oh,
be some
good.
more.
Good. Well, with any help we can give to promote it, let us know.
Well, thank you.
Manzanita Writers Press. It's too bad we couldn't publish this, but we do a lot of historical works in our county, and we
Oh,
want to
that's
do
great.
more of that to preserve our history and
Right.
the stories. We do the Voices of Wisdom program, where the seniors tell their stories, and we bind them into anthologies and get those out there. We're working on our 4th one now. We did the Out of the Fire publication. I don't know if you remember. I'll send you guys a copy of that.
I would love to have one.
It
Sure.
really was it's an amazing book. I'd love to expand it. Now that history, now that the history has kind of, I guess, not burnished the pain, but assuaged it a little bit, where people can now start telling their stories because they couldn't at first.
Right.
So, and it affected our county in such a dire way. But,
Until we
Well,
don't
having good,
repeat it.
beautiful museums,
yeah,
I think is very important for the history of this country.
yeah, definitely. And so, thank you so much again for coming and spending time with us, and hope to talk to you again.
Well, it's our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
And we
you.
thank you for the effort, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks. Appreciate it.